Yo, how's it going, MAthmech players? Welcome back to another MAthmech and Codetalker video. So in today's video, I actually wanted to go through a question that one of you guys asked in the comments of my last video. So this is for doesnt111. I'm so sorry if I've butchered your name, mate. You just let me know in the comments of this video if I have, and I'll correct it in the next one, but apologies again. So Dunt asked a very good question about deck building, and I think it's more relevant than ever that this has become a little bit of an issue. So the question was how we build our deck within MAthmech, because now we just have so much options. Like, it's almost like being asked just your favorite movie. Like, there's just too many to go through, or maybe you have one on the top of your head, but like, Jesus, there's just so many when you consider the options. So because MAthmech Circular's at 3, and now with all the Firewall support, it's really hard to choose the defining 15 cards in your extra deck, as well as keeping your deck to 40 cards and making sure that you have all the relevant main engine and extenders. So what I wanted to do is, I'm going to try and keep this in one cut video. So if we just go through the deck list, and I'll explain... Oh, sorry, getting connection issues. I'll explain like a very common rule of thumb to follow. So first and foremost, do not just copy somebody else's deck list and then assume that's going to work for you, because I remember when I started this game, and well, when I started playing with MAthmech, I started the game with Dark Magician because I liked the anime, and then found out the deck was arse. So even with this, the starter pack. But when I started playing MAthmech, I was looking through like all of these other content creators, and I was using their deck list, and I'm so happy it works for them, but it just didn't work for me. I just found like they bricked in so many situations, and I was never able to gather resources I wanted. So, but that's just for me. Like that's my point, which is that, so this deck list here, this works for me right at the moment because I've changed as of like recent changes, but it's not necessarily going to work exactly the same for you, because the average deck that you're going to face is going to be different from mine. I saw somebody's post on Master Duel Meta. He reached Master 1. There was another one who reached Master 5, talking about how they play Purely and Dragon Link a lot. I have barely seen those two decks. I've literally only seen Lab, and that is complete luck. And I completely own that and recognize that. But that's my whole point, that we play different decks on average. So I should be preparing for the ones I play on average, and then they should be preparing for the ones they play on average. Because if I just put generic cards that may fit with different decks, when they come up and they don't actually have any play, it's really shit. So what I mean by that is I wouldn't play like 3 Nibiru, because the thing is, having, one in hand, you want another one in the deck for like Crossout Designator. But I don't always want to open with this card in my hand just because of the combo decks I'm playing. And against Labyrinth, like, Nibiru is terrible. Doesn't work at all. So I'm thinking about opting in a second red reboot, or even Ghost Spell for big welcome, and then I can save Ash for welcome Labyrinth. And it's that type of thinking that you need to have, is like, okay, well, it's great that this is like, this deck list works for LMAO, but I'm not playing against Labyrinth, I'm playing against a lot of Dragon Link, and in that case, then you may have to sub in, Ghost Spell, you may need to sub in, more extenders so that you can keep playing through. It's just stuff like that. But look, that's more the generic rule of thumb, so it's a lot of trial and error, so that's more the generic one, but I'll kind of go through how you should build it from the ground up. So let's start with the hand traps. I think that's the best way. So a good guide to follow by is, you shouldn't have more than 12 hand traps. Remember, you want to keep it at 40 in a deck, so ideally you don't want to have just over a quarter of your deck being hand traps. Like, MAthmech is great for the idea that we can fill up a lot of our deck with hand traps, but when you open with just hand traps and no extenders to go into your actual play line, it's really shit, like really, really shit. And then you're very dependent on the spells and traps, because a very basic MAthmech deck will be primarily MAthmech monsters with maybe some extenders, maybe even the Firewall stuff, but primarily MAthmech, right? And then maybe 3 Silent Mining, 3 Small World. And that can work, but I'll be honest, there's been so many times when I played that variation that I would open with mostly spells and traps, and you're just like, well, now I can't even go anywhere. Like, they Ash Silent Mining, don't have a monster in hand to use Small World on, so now what? Like, what do I do? And even if I do get, Circular out, and they just imperm the Alan Bersham, where's the rest of my play? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just like, it's one of those things where I feel like if you're too heavily reliant on the starters rather than having the starters more likely to be started in hand, then you're in a bad position. And what I meant by that is that I don't like to rely on just having like, these are backup lines, right? It's nice to have when I have the starters, because if you look at the ratio of monsters to, like, all my spells and traps are just one row, all down here, right? So I think it's 10 in a row, so 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Yeah. So this is how I like to split it. You can do more if you like, but ideally I like to open with the starters here and then maybe some hand traps as well. So that's how I've split it. So let's start with hand traps. So I go 2 Droll. I think it's absolutely mandatory that you play this card this season, whether you're playing a combo deck or just purely, really. This card kills purely, but it also does a big job against like the mirror match, and I'm quite scared of the mirror match at the minute. Playing against another MAthmech player is actually pretty terrifying, because now there are so many combo guides, not just my own, but they've taught MAthmech players to not just end on heat soul and super factorial, so it does put us in a really tough spot. Like, they build a strong end board now, and we're ending on terahertz with disable in the graveyard is actually pretty tough to play through. So I have to say it's nice to see, but it's not nice to lose to. So yeah, Duel, very essential this season. I play 2, you can play 3, but I don't think it's that prevalent, so I would use 2 just in case, just to save space in your deck list. Now 2 Max C. So I know people play 3, but I'm not a huge fan of this card. I think, like, it may be prideful and arrogant, but I hate winning a game just because of this card. Like, why would I want to win a game by just using this fucking insect, and then my opponent scoops because they don't have the out? Like, what is that? What Yu-Gi-Oh is now? Like, it's like just, you know, one card, not even a combo, just one card, and that's it. Like, that's boring. So I play 2 for the sake of, if I open with 1 and cross that designator, at least I have the second to negate from my graveyard, because you do need to have the negate for it, unfortunately. So yep, I play 2. Ash Blossom is essential. It's always been a staple hand trap and will remain that way, because, you know, drawing cards from your deck to your hand is just a empirical part of the game. It's just very important. So being able to stop your opponent from gathering resources or extending their combo by sending something to the graveyard, or even special summoning from the main deck, very important. It's very good against most decks, really. I mean, I'm sure, so Dragon Link can play through it, Purely can play through it, but in desperate situations, this card is very, very good. Like, you never know what game state your opponent's in, you never know what they draw. So if you time the Ash well, because you know their combos and you think it might, you know, provide the most impact, then yeah, it could even just win you the game realistically. So good against Labyrinth, it just stops them from summoning their boss monsters, and, you know, it puts us in a great spot. So yep, Ash staple here. And then we've got Nibiru. Again, this is for the combo decks, just because, and the mirror match, it's just so good to be able to let your opponent build a board and then just completely rip it apart, because, well, they lose all their monsters. Terrible against Telements, and even worse against Labyrinth, because Labyrinth don't really... I've never used Nibiru on Labyrinth. I saw a TCG player say that he won because Nibiru managed to completely tear apart Labyrinth, but that is insane. Like, I don't know how your opponent is summoning 5 times on one turn with, like, you know, the trap cards. So yeah, very, very insane from that point. But yeah, that's pretty much Nibiru. Any other hand traps? I guess Infinite Impermanence. This is also a staple hand trap. So good, but I just don't find it as impactful. Like, I don't know. I think playing 1, maybe 2. I know people play 3. It might be a good idea to play 3, depending on the game state that you're facing. But for myself, I just haven't found it that impactful. It's more for the mirror match, if anything. And the only reason I have 1, and I should play 2, because the same rule as Max C, in case I open with 1 and need to negate it, then I have the other in hand. But I'm just not too big of a fan, and I wouldn't even know where to make the space for it. So that's pretty much hand traps kind of settled for you. My rule of thumb is like 12 max, because you do not want to take up more. Let's say I get rid of Nibiru just for the example, and I put 2 more impermanence. Now the ratio of, you know, monsters to these traps and, you know, spells, it's not bad. Like, I don't think you can have a definitively right or wrong answer here, but I would say that you do increase your chances of just drawing more spells and traps, and I don't really want to fall into that. So yeah, I prefer not to do that. And then let me grab the Beaver back. There we go. Save that. Now moving on to the actual main engine, so pure MAthmech. So if you're playing just pure MAthmech, then you're going to want less of these, you know, supporting archetypes like Firewall Dragon. You probably get rid of the Guardian, both defenses, Phantom, and then you may even get rid of Microcoder, 1 Microcoder, and definitely these 2. So that way you can double up on the rest. I'd say, well, I'll just show like an example. So if I get rid of all the support that I've put in here, a MAthmech deck might look like this. So you may get 2 Diameter, 2 Sigma, and then 2 of each for these guys. And then you'd probably, so you wouldn't even play this. And then you'd probably play Small World to ensure that you have that searching option. And then here we go. Look, we have a lot of like starters and going into it. This is decent, but for myself, I do find that you lack the ability to extend into your further combos. Like, you can maybe end on, you know, terahertz with potentially Protect Codetalker, but it's going to require the right amount of cards, and you're more, what's the right word for it? You're more susceptible to interruption. So 1 Ash just completely ends the play from there, because if you're depending on these, then you're in a very bad spot. So yeah, I do think this type of playstyle is just not for me. So let me don't want to save that. Almost got rid of my current deck list. That would have been terrible for me, because that took me ages to like reconfigure and build. But yeah, so that's pretty much pure MAthmech. At the minute, I play it like this because I hate the fact that these three are bricks. Like, you only really want to open with circular. The only time you want diameter in hand or nabla in certain situations is if you have circular. If you don't have circular, opening with, you know, both of these cards together is a brick, because you can only normal summon one of them. And what are you supposed to do? Like, the only times that, and it's very, very niche, by the way, so I can describe it. So I've opened with diameter and nabla. I use Signet Mining to discard nabla for cost, and my opponent negated it, so I just used diameter to normal summon, bring back nabla, and now I can go into my Alan Bursh and play with a negate. So it was pretty decent, but that is a very niche scenario, and you cannot just think that's going to come around like very common. And then opening with multiplication is an immediate brick, because you want this card in your deck. I hate opening with this card. It just makes me sad that it happens. And when I'll stick on the MAthmech stuff for now, but yeah, just having MAthmech stuff. I used to play maybe 2 addition, maybe 2 subtraction, because even if you open with 2 addition and 2 subtraction, not in the same hand, but like in respective hands, at least you can normal summon one, special summon the other. So you're not in the worst position, but given like the actual Codetalker support that I like to implement, I just don't have the space to just do that. And everything's not about the level 4 bodies anymore. Now that we have stuff like Terahertz, I've won games where I don't have Super Factorial just because Terahertz having Desave Worm and Aggregator, so good. And then, of course, I have like a Floodgate card to help me as well, which I will show a replay of in a moment. But that's pretty much the MAthmech line. You can choose it how you want with like how many you play of each, but just remember that trying to keep the deck at 40 is probably the hardest job. So you need to choose whether you're going to go pure MAthmech or if you're going to start using the new support system, which is Firewall or Sakitama. Sakitama is great as well. I'm just preferring the Firewall stuff at this very moment just because I like the new extra deck monsters we have and enjoy it while it's here, because my strong prediction is that Circular is going to be hit to 1, like the TCG, because at the minute, the amount of options we have is crazy. Like, I think when they didn't hit it, I was in like genuine disbelief of like, what? Like, maybe someone's missed something or whatever, but hopefully Konami don't see anything about this video, so I hope they keep it this way. It would be very nice for us. But yeah, I think a good prediction is that these two will go, and then we'll have to change the deck list to prioritize getting Alan Bursh and the circular line, and maybe even looking into Small World. And but I have an alternative to Small World, which we'll touch on in a minute. But yeah, that's pretty much the MAthmech line. Choose it how you wish. Just be warned that these 3 normal summons are pretty much bricky, so got to be very, very careful with that. And you have to play Nabla. Unfortunately, it's very very mandatory that you have this in case you have to make Alan Bursh out of other means. You send Nabla, bring it back, and that way it will get diameter from its own effect. So you do have to be very careful with that. But yeah, that's pretty much the MAthmech line explained. So if I go into the support system, so in my case, this is going to be Firewall, no longer Sakitama. Now, Sakitama was great because if you opened with Sakitama and Diameter or any other normal summon MAthmech monster, even Lady Debug being a level 4 as well, essentially this is just a special summon that's classed as a normal summon, so it would just bring itself on. And why I like it being classed as a normal summon is because it doesn't interfere with the transcode play, so that way you can still use this card's effect in Link Climb, using its effect to resummon a Cyburst monster. So I do think it's very, very good. Just have to be cautious, I suppose, about how you open with these guys. But yeah, now that I don't open with I don't use Sakitama, sorry, I don't feel the need to have Salaman Grey, Almirage in my extra deck, but that is just a risk because, I mean, it's just a risk. Like, it's just a risk I'm willing to take because I'm hoping I don't open with Handtraps only and no Cyburst monsters. So we just take it from there, really. So that's pretty much Sakitama explained. But for the Firewall stuff, you can play 3 Defensor, but because, like, I don't expect people to play this card. So you can play 3 Defensor, and that still works very, very well. And then you can also get rid of maybe, I'm not sure, maybe Signet Codec, play a third one of these. And this can be very consistent, but for me, I like to have those extra, you know, cards that provide a little bit of a risk. And oh, I forgot to pull this from the pack. Just get rid of this. Cool. Sorry about that. Just want to get rid of it before I forgot about it. But yeah, so yeah, this is a pretty standard good deck list at the minute. I can't say I could fault it too much. Maybe you could get another starter in here, but if you look at the ratio of like monsters to this, because it's not the worst. I think the best thing to open up with is Crossout Designator, and then if they don't max C, which would be the best thing, that way you can save this for Nibiru, because Nibiru is probably the biggest threat for us right now, and then of course Impermanence, and then yeah, you can just take it from there. But yeah, for the support line, you can go 3 Defensor, 1 Guardian, and then 1 Phantom. You don't have to play Phantom. Phantom is only there for myself because I like the Signet Codec play. So if I get rid of one of these again, just so I don't confuse myself. So it was, what was it, Signet Codec? Yep, and then I don't even remember what the other one was. It's not a big deal. Actually, I do remember. It is a big deal to me. It is a big deal to me. So yeah, deck lockdown is great for me. So yeah, this is pretty much the firewall stuff explained. Now, you don't even need the firewall stuff necessarily. It's just great as an extender because they push into the higher link climbing of, you know, the firewall stuff out here, getting into protect code as well. And just the better developed endboards that I put in my last in the combo video, because I just think it's very important that we establish the limits to which we can take this deck. And again, circular being at 3 and the firewall support being so good, we can create unstoppable endboards. I'd say the most unstoppable endboard is the V-Lock or the V-Link. I don't know the name of the strategy, but it's mainly for Codetalker players, and you wouldn't really play a lot of these cards in it. I'm not even sure you'd keep Update Jammer, because it's more about having all of, so both the 2 extra monster zones locked, and then 3 monsters in the main monster zones co-linked with the monsters in the extra monster zone, and then Ibly locking them. So, but I'm not a fan of that strat. I just find it's too long. I don't really find that entertaining. But if you want results and you can get that consistently, then do it. Like, by all means, it's your game. You play how you want to play. But for myself, yeah, I'd rather just play through trying to get the OTK line and turbo, not FTK. So yeah, now yeah, that's pretty much the firewall stuff explained. Opening with Guardian and opening with Phantom is the exact same effect with, you know, diameter, multiplication, and Nabla. It's bricks. Even worse to open with Phantom, because this being a level 5, it is so annoying to like figure out what to do with it. Like, yeah, it's actually terrible. But one thing I will say, this is a niche game state, but you should take note of it. Let's say you have multiplication in the graveyard and you have other MAthmech bodies for ablation, blah blah blah. You should use Firewall Phantom's effect in the graveyard to shuffle this back, because it's just a lot better for milling it off terahertz rather than, you know, having to get another splash mage involved to get it out the graveyard. Like, it's, yeah, impossible. So not impossible, but so rare to do it. So I wouldn't really try and, you know, bend over backwards to get that working. I would just put this back in the main deck and then you can mill it when you get the chance to. So that's pretty much that sorted. Now we can move on to the Codetalker stuff. So with the Codetalker stuff, you don't have to play Code Generator. I just like it as an extender, and I am playing Signet Codex, so it does help me because I get to mill .scaper, that's an extra body on board, as well as using this card from the hand to link summon. So it is a lot easier for me. Like these 2, so there's 3 cards, but these 2 particular cards are just amazing for link summoning. They have counterparts. So if I go into here, like they have pretty decent effects, but I don't know, not my favorite cards to use, to be honest. I've considered playing this, but this being a level 5, I've got way too many bricks in this house, so I don't really need to add any more. That's why I've taken out Ibly as well. Ibly is a fantastic card, by the way. Like, it does prevent Nibiru, but you lose your normal summon, or you're losing, how would I explain? You're losing a lot of resources to get to it, because I think the best case scenario is that it's in the graveyard, you use Splash Mage to get it out, use Ibly to go into Link Decoder, and then you're good from there, because after that, they can't Nibiru you, they can't imperm you. Well, they might do it in the transition, but after Ibly is summoned to their field, you're pretty much protected, so you're good. So unless it's the mirror match, you're in a very strong position. So yeah, that's pretty much that. But with the Codetalker stuff, 2 microcoder is a good number, maybe 3. Sometimes it's good to have 3, and you could take this out if you want. But that's why Lady Debug is here. I consider it part of the Codetalker stuff, because the only reason you want this is to search one or the other. So it's really up to you. So I personally like having it in there. None of the other Signet stuff is really that good in my opinion, but there are stuff that I'm going to test in the future. But that's pretty much the Codetalker stuff. You want to keep it limited. I've seen I'd say more basic forms of the deck. And when I say basic, there's a lot of, like, you know, duplicates of the same card, so there's not really many one-offs. There's no Firewall like stuff in there either. It's just MAthmech, pure MAthmech with 3 or 2 of this, and then a lot of Signet mining, and then 3 Small World as well, so you can just secure that playline. But like I showed earlier, it's consistent, but with consistency lacks the potential for impact. So it depends how you want to play. I've also made that, that VLAN Hydra deck, which, by the way, I would not recommend now, but if you really like consistency, this is as consistent as it gets. Like, you got plenty of searches, you got 3 copies of the card you want, you got 3 copies of the card that will search for it directly, and then of course you got the spell starters, spell searches here, as well as all the bridges to get to it. So yeah, like, if you want consistency, this is as good as it gets, but the impact of the end board will be super factorial, Signet, conflict, and if you brick and have to go down the VLAN Hydra route, it's going to be access code on the board. So not the strongest board, in my opinion. So yeah, this is a decent deck, but I think, like I said, this is the most consistent, but the least impactful. And then obviously it changes as you change the deck list going forward. So where's my one? Yeah, so that's pretty much the Codetalker engine and the Firewall support explained. And then I'll go into the extra deck after the next basic rule. So basic rule number 4, it would be spells and traps. So you can see I've kept it to 10 here. Now you can go more, but just bear in mind, you need to keep a proper ratio of monsters to spells and traps, because I've had games where you just open with spells and traps, and what can you do? Because if they, Ash sign at mining, and you've got small world in hand, like where do you go from here? Like even the Signet Codec requires monsters. Like it's a dead card afterwards otherwise. So yeah, it does put you in a very tough position of you need to have the natural extenders to just start your play. You know what I mean? And like I said for myself, I might even be playing 2 red reboot at some point. Maybe increase infinite impermanence because it's a staple. It's just up to you. Like you need to decide like what you face on an average and what you want to see more of. Because yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't need to like explain that in too much detail. You need to really take a look at like your match history, see the decks you've been playing the most, and then adjust accordingly. Because otherwise, yeah, unless I'm seeing your replays, I can't tell you what I feel like you could be adding. It really is just like a per individual judgment. So it's really up to you. That's pretty much the spells and traps. But yeah, you don't have to play cards like this. So this is a Floodgate card. If you haven't, tuned into the channel recently, it's a card that I like. I'm not going to promote it onto you guys, but it is just a good card for like, I guess, winning games by itself. Like if I have pretty sure I have a replay here. Yep, it takes ages to get in. Okay. So I have a replay where basically this card just wins me, the match. Like I didn't even need to do anything. So this is against none other than Purely with Runic, so double cancer. And I'll fast forward it. I won't pause it at any point. But just to point out, I forgot I didn't have Aggregator in my extra deck. So when I tried to use Terahertz to mill it, I just completely forgot I don't have it. So I was quite lucky to win this game for more than one reason. And then as you can see here, I don't have a great hand. I don't know what my opponent's playing. So my best bet is to go into Terahertz from here. And then just kind of take it by chance, see what I can do. And then yeah, we just make a judgment call. And then I get infinite permanence, which is also great. So this board here, so I'll pause it for like 1 second. This is 1 interruption because I don't have Aggregator, 2 interruptions, 3 interruptions, and then deck lockdown is just a floodgate. So, and then when we start to see what he's playing, we realize, yeah, I'm very confident when I have this card and I see Purely because they can't play through it. They just don't know what to do. This card can't add anything. He negates my effect, but I don't have Aggregator, so it doesn't matter. So I negate it because I don't want him to summon, what's the name, Gary, and then attack into Terahertz just to delete this card, basically. Can't special summon from the main deck, so that was useless. Special summons Gary eventually, and yeah, completely useless. Like, what can it? Because he can either delete Terahertz, and I can try and make a play next round, or he can delete deck lockdown, but he has nothing to add to hand anyway. So I would have won that game regardless. So didn't even need to use Ash, didn't even need to use Impermanence, just 1 D-Save Worm and deck lockdown, and yeah, that game was all mine. So pretty good. And I'll tell you what, just to show you how you do have to change your decks based on like, your average games. Here's a good example. So this was the deck list I was using before I put in the Firewall support, right? So you can see here I've got Sakitama, none of the Firewall stuff. My extra deck is a little bit different. I've got Aggregator in here and Almirage just because there's higher risk of drawing into something that isn't a Cyburst monster. And the ratio of my monsters to spells is a bit different. So I have 12 spells and traps together. And then this is the rest of it. So this was consistent for me for a while. It did work so well. But I'll tell you what, I'll just show you here. So these 5 wins in a row, that was from the Firewall support deck list that I'm currently using, right? But before with the Sakitama line, I had like 3 losses in a row, a win, a loss, 3 wins in a row, 2 losses, 2 wins, and it was just constantly like this. So in a rank climb, this is not good at all. Like, it's not nice. Like, you get the 3 wins in a row, but if you've already been relegated, the ratio of like games that you need to the games that, a loss can put you into the like lower tier. So you need 5 games to go up in Master, right? Per tier, each tier, right? It's all the same. But 3 games at the bottom rank to go down. So for me, this was just pathetic. Like, it was not good enough. So I was like, okay, you know what? I need to make a change. Let's try out the Firewall stuff. And look, it's been working for me so far. And I'll make a judgment call based on what I see in the future. So it's been pretty good for me. And like I said in the past, if you haven't, tuned in before recently, with this card, I said that this was a card from the moment I added it in and even posted about it, right? But this card has done well for me. So until, again, it presents significant negative results, then I'm just going to keep it in. I don't see any reason not to. Now, for the last bit, I just want to talk about alternatives. So, and, taking risks on cards. So if I go to my regular deck list here, and then I'll wrap it up here. So with my current deck list, right, I don't play many search cards. I like Silent Codec because I can search it off Firewall Phantom, and then we can combo off there to get microcoder and an insane end board, right? But when it comes to stuff like Small World is almost invaluable to a deck like this, because it's nice to have something that can search for any card in your deck, provided that you have the right bridges to get into it, okay? And if you don't know what bridges are, just say in the comments below, and I can link you to a site. I can't remember the name of the guy that made it, but the site is excellent. You can type in the cards you're looking to get and the cards that you have, and it can show you bridges to get to the cards that you want. So we can go through that if you want me to. So, but that's for later. So Small World is fantastic. Like I said, invaluable for searching any card out. If you need Kurikara, then you can, use the appropriate bridges to get to it. Just know how to do it. And then, yeah, you can have the right cards in hand, right? But for myself, I just feel like, where am I going to fit it? I want stuff that's going to be more consistent for like actual starters. Because if they ash Small World and it was my only way to search something, it just feels really shitty. Like really, really shitty. Because it's just like, okay, this card's not doing anything for me. Now, yeah, like I said, very invaluable. But there are alternatives for searching cards in your deck. Primarily Cyburst like monsters. So this is a card that I briefly touched on, but it's a good thing. I do like to encourage stuff like this because the Signet stuff in general is very good. And then I'll show you other stuff that I'm planning to playtest in the near future. So with this card, it's a quick play spell. So it's very good for you to time this in accordance for your monster being negated. So you can target a Cyburst monster you control. You banish it until the next standby phase, so it comes back on your next turn. So it's really, really good. And what you do is you can add a Cyburst monster from your deck to your hand, whose attack is lower than that monster's original attack. So where I've used this primarily is where I've used Circular, I've milled Sigma, brought Sigma back, gotten Super Factorial, and then I've gone into Alan Bershin. Alan Bershin is a humongous magnet for impermanence. It always has been. It always gets impermed, and then it's useless. It can't even use its tribute effect because it would just, well, it's negated. It would just go to the graveyard and do absolutely nothing. So what I like to do is I like to time Signet Backdoor to the Infinite Impermanence or Effect Veiler, like afterwards, obviously. So third chain link or second chain link. And then you dodge the negation. So you're still able to search for Diameter. And then on top of that, you can continue your plays. You can either add Defensor, Microcoder, whatever you want, basically. And why that's so good is because, look, this is 2000 attack. Most of our monsters, the only two that aren't 2000 below that are Cyburst are Parallel Exceed and Phantom. But you can search for the other extenders. And then just go into the rest of your plays. So you can go for Firewall, and then normal summon Firewall, get Phantom, and then discard Diameter, and then go into the combos that we described in the last video, right? Or you can go into Microcoder, and you go straight into your Silent Conflict line. You're in a fantastic spot here. Now, of course, if they ash it, that's done. But, like, you have to take those risks. Like, it is one of those things. So I do like this card for dodging not only negation, but when you dodge stuff like Bestial, Boldrake's effect, because it will target and banish a monster, you can dodge that, as well as Fenrir. Fenrir I've never seen so much in so many decks, like especially Labyrinth. Like, they love to add that card in. Well, rightfully so. I mean, it's a great card to have if you can afford to like, slot it in. So yeah, this is really good for dodging that, and that's a hard once per turn, the Fenrir one. So once you dodge it, it's done. Like, you have another monster to add to hand, and it being banished, it's nice to get stuff like Alan Bershin back. So I do think it's really good. I've even used it on Codetalker once, and that won me the game, because once Codetalker came back, you can place him anywhere on the field, and I just use his effect to revive a different link monster, and we just keep climbing, and it's just amazing. So I do think this is a very good card to also opt in, maybe in replacement for Small World. That's completely up to you. Now, there's two other cards that I spoke about that I'm going to test. So one being Crosswipe. It's good to have a card like this, because I feel like card destruction at the minute is quite important. There's a lot of stun going around, so it's good to get rid of Clockwork, that card that turns everything into machines. So irritating to play against, or even against Fossil Dino if you want to just keep special summoning. But Clockwork is the more important one, I'd say, just because, yeah, it's just very irritating to, yeah, it's so hard to climb around a card like that. Just, yeah, it's ridiculous. So yeah, and then you can just normal summon something like, I don't know, Defensor, crash into it because it's 1200 attack, or Lady Debug, more attack, just kill it and you're good from there. But yeah, that's pretty much one of the cards I'm going to test. And the other one is Cynet Rollback. So this one's just come out and it actually has quite an interesting effect of, so you'll target a banished Cyberburst monster and then you can special summon it. Now why I find that interesting is because if we're playing against Dragonlink, for example, and they banish, you know, Sigma, at least we can continue the play from there. And I'm not sure how limited the Cyberburst monster kind of wording is, whether you can choose a Link monster or any monster. It's just nice to know that you can continue your play from there, you know what I mean? Like imagine this Phantom, you know, it banishes itself to activate its second effect, and then you have Silent Robot just to bring it back anyway. Like it's kind of a nice like feature. It's a great extension. Like it just means that even if something's banished, you can bring it back. Now that doesn't mean the same for Kashtira though, because banish face down is a completely different thing. You will not be able to interact with those cards anymore. That's why face down is a very specific wording. But yeah, those are pretty much two cards that I'm testing out, and the reason why I'm bringing up so many like cards I'm testing out is because I feel like you should also test out cards as well. Like there's no such thing as like a bad idea. Like, well, now I say that, I just remembered something I tried and it was a terrible test run. So you'll see here I have Neospatian Aquadolphin, and now the theory was that you would normal summon it, discard a card, and then look at your opponent's hand and be able to get rid of hand traps like Droll, maybe even, you know, Ash Blossom. And then to be honest, just knowing what your opponent's playing is great. So if they brick as well, it's even better because now you know you can just rip them apart. But the only thing is, of course, this is vulnerable to Impermanence and Infect Veiler, which is two risks that I was willing to take. That was standard. But the thing that is a problem with this is that you are very heavily reliant on other starters being in your hand. So if you don't see Circular in your hand, or like Cynet Mining, or even Small World in this case, then you're in a really bad spot because, yeah, you're heavily reliant on making sure that you have extra monsters to keep going. So yeah, I wasn't too big of a fan of it, and maybe I'll try and opt it in the future, but for now I'm just going to put that one to bed. It was a nice idea, but it didn't really pan out. But yeah, look, I'm going to wrap the video up here, and actually, to be honest, guys, if you try out different cards and you have any theories that you want me to try out, then yeah, just shoot them my way. I'm more than happy to play test them. I think it's a lot of fun to try out different cards that will help within the MAthmech line, because why not? I like to see the MAthmech line doing better than it usually will, and with Circular eventually being hit to 1, it will be nice to kind of learn new ways to keep this deck super impactful. So anyway, look, I'm going to wrap it up here, but thank you so much for your time, and if you have any questions, I'll see you in the comments. All right, take care, guys. Guys, I'm so sorry for this, but I really quickly need to touch on the extra deck just because I completely forgot to even go through it. So with the extra deck, you notice I'm not playing Aggregator, but I might actually remove Heat Soul and play Aggregator. That way I can keep those two negates on Terahertz. At the moment, like, Heat Soul's a fantastic card. It's nice to be able to draw into potentially a more impactful card to continue your plays or strengthen the current ones. But it's just so much risk, and I do find maybe I don't need it as much as I used to, just because stuff like Protect Code actually has like a dual effect, and I just love this card. I'm not gonna lie, it's so good. Like, you can use it for link climbing, you can use it to protect your monsters, and you can use it to secure Cynet Conflict's usability. So I prefer this card at the minute, and feel like this is the necessary way. I'm actually thinking about getting rid of Update Jammer, which sounds crazy, I know, because this is like our standard OTK Turbo, but I'm kind of leaning towards having another Laplation. There have been so many games where I played for an Ash, I played for an Impermanence, and then I had the bodies to go into Laplation, but I wanted to continue my play. And having that third Laplation would just rip apart my opponent, because he'd be stuck with 2 cards, get a third one on his turn, and then, you know, there's a lot less to deal with, you know. But on the other hand, in extension to that, if he even maxed me and I negated it, he's down to 2 cards, and I take him down to 1, and then on his turn he draws another card, and then even less cards to provide impact. But with the extra deck, this is the one I'm currently moving with. You see I don't have Almirage because I'm kind of depending on the idea that I'll open with a Cyburst monster given the ratio of cards I've got. But if you don't want to take that risk, by all means. Another card that you should consider playing, because Nibiru is quite an active card at the minute, is Link Spider. It's quite important to have a card that will get rid of the token and then remain into your Cyburst plays, because it's not an effect monster, the token, it's a token. So you need something to actually be able to bring it back, and unfortunately that is the only card. So I'm not even sure where I'd make the room. I may even, tell you what, I'll take the risk for you guys right now, and I'll tell you if it's a bad idea later. So I just put this down. Oh, that's why I split it wrong. And then we got Link Spider here. So I'll give this a go, and I'll let you guys know how it goes. But again, thank you so much for watching the video, and I'll catch you in the next one.